Okay, so good afternoon. So welcome to this week 6 of our Android intermediate training in KodeCamp 3.0. So today we're going to be looking at Room database, right? We're going to be looking at Room database. Now, I believe you probably have worked with it or have heard it, somewhere, right? So, but basically, it's actually a database library, right? It's actually widely used, right? So it's a database library for Android app development, right? It's part of the Android architecture components, right? And basically it just helps you to kind of it's like a very simple it gives you this simple database management, right? And provides more like I'll call it an abstraction layer over SQLite, because actually your Android database basically it actually runs on SQLite. So but Room actually you so let's move. Let's just run through the slide, and then we'll get into cooking, right? So the basic features of Room, I'm just going to run this quickly, right? First one, with your um, database using your, probably if you're using Java or Kotlin, right? Using your Kotlin object. So and this is one of the very key advantages of Room, right? Its ability to catch, SQL related errors at compile time rather than at runtime, right? It catches errors related to your SQL at compile time while it is compiling rather than at runtime. So it just checks your SQL queries to ensure that they are valid before it actually runs your app, right? So that's actually very, very, very good feature of Room. Of course, we have live data integration. So Room actually just it integrates with live data seamlessly. And of course, your live data is part of your Android architecture components that basically allows you to observe changes. So using it with Room now, it's able to observe changes in your database and automatically update your UI, when the data actually changes, right? And we're going to be using that. Of course, we have the RX Java support. So if you, well, these are people, well, if for people who prefer, RX Java for, when you talk about reactive programming, though, Room actually provides support for RX Java. That allows you to work with database queries in a reactive manner. Well, none of you actually, well, I don't know if any of you actually do reactive programming, but that's just out there. So of course, data access objects, which we call DAOs, right? We're going to use that definitely. So Room uses your DAO, which is a data access objects, to define the database operations you want to perform, such as your insert operation, your update operation, delete operation, your query, right? You want to query the database. So your data access objects, or DAOs, they are just interfaces. That's what they are. They are just interfaces, or you can just call them abstract or classes, but they are notated with the at DAO, right? We'll see that when we, when we get into coding. Now, of course, another feature is database migration, right? You can actually, because as your app definitely is going to evolve, you might need to actually change your database schema, right? So Room actually supports database migrations. that it makes it easier to adapt your database structure over time, without losing your data. So I think maybe in let's say probably on Friday, we'll create a scenario in our application that will require us to, kind of migrate our data, right? And then we'll test out that feature. Okay, so of course we have type converters. Room allows you to, convert, to define type converters that automatically converts complex data types. Like for example, your dates objects. Your date object is actually a complex data type, so it's converted into types that can be stored. So you have your date object that comes as a date time, so you can actually just convert it into probably just a particular format and store in your database, right? So that type room actually allows you to define type converters. Then of course caching and performance, right? So room of course includes, it has built-in support for that, to cache queries that can, significantly improve app performance, right? And basically it's how it does that is it just reduces redundant database word queries. So basically what is a typical scenario is probably you create a new let's say from our notebook perspective, right? You create a new notebook, you add a new note, right? And you had 4 before, then all of a sudden you have 5, right? So it's able to just cache that data, that list, right? In your where you're displaying your list. So if, for example, you go to a next screen and probably come back, or you minimize, it doesn't have to run that fetch query again, right? It can actually and that's API or querying the database, because of course the more you query your database, right, the more you're impacting the performance. So as much as you can to reduce querying the database, right, that that actually increases app performance. So that's where caching comes in. Right. And of course, we have the simplified database management, right? Simplified database management. So Room basically abstracts many of the complex tasks, right, that's associated with SQLite, such as managing your database, right? Database connections, what we call transactions, right? So it kind of just makes things easier when you're actually working with an Android. Okay. So that's basically that. So let's move on. Okay, so next up, so why do we use Room, right? Why Room? So basically, ease of use. Room actually is, it simplifies your database management. That makes it easy for you as a developer to, assess, right? To assess and then, kind of do whatever it is you need to do, right? So, and of course, you don't even need to have too much experience, right? Make use of Room. It's actually easy to use. Of course, supports threading, right? It has support for threading. That, of course, threading actually allows for, your data to perform in an optimal way, right? Which, of course, in turn ensures your app to run smoothly. Now, of course, maintenance, right? So Room actually abstracts your database schema management, right? And migration. So it abstracts it. So that it just makes it easier to adapt your changes, right, in your app structure over time. Like I said, we'll create a scenario, right, where we'll have to, probably, adjust our schema much later. So that would actually require us to do migration, right? So where we get there, right? Of course, data observability, right? This talks about Room's integration with live data, right? To observe the database and update the UI in response to database changes. Now, of course, reduced boilerplate code, right? Because the truth, Room generates much of the boilerplate code for you, right? So that reduces the amount of code you actually will need to write or maintain. And of course, the last one, which we mentioned, compile time verification, right? So it performs compile time checks on your queries, right? So that means it catches the error before your application even runs. Okay, so that's basically why we use Room. Now, but where does Room store its data, right? Where does Room store its data? So you need to understand that Room, as a database library for Android, okay, it stores this data in a SQLite database. right? That's where it stores its data. Now, SQLite, right? If for some of us that you can actually read that up, check it out. It's basically just a lightweight embedded database engine rather, that's part of the Android operating system. Okay, so what Room does, it uses SQLite as its underlying storage mechanism. So the SQLite database created by Room is a file-based, database. So the data is basically just stored in a particular directory within your app's private storage space on the device. That's why you can see the path, right? Your path will look like something like this: data/data, your app, your dot package slash databases, right? So it's basically just a file-based database, right? So this your dot app dot package, that's basically the package name of your application. So within the database directory, Room creates, manages one or more database files, and each of them corresponding to a specific database that's been defined in your application by using Room. So of course, all the database files, you see them, they have the .db extension by default. Okay, so that's basically where Room organize kind of stores its data. Okay, so what are the steps, right? So let's just run through it. We're going to implement it, right? Run through it. So first of all, you have to import the Room library. Okay, to use Room, you have to get the library to your add that to your build.gradle file, right? And of course, you should that's very, very important. Now, one of the things you need to understand, right? Of course, I want to believe you do, is the concept of versions, right? So you need to also note that sometimes just because you have a prompt on Android Studio to update a library version doesn't mean you should quickly run into updating it, because a lot of times, okay, I'll give you a typical example. I think that was like 3 or 4 days ago. Having I Studio, so right, which I did. But now there are certain libraries, right, that don't actually are not yet compatible. They don't run on that 34. So it's not every update that you should just run and just do, right? You need to actually go check the documentation, check for compatibility. It's very, very important, right? So whatever version you're using, you need to make sure that it is compatible with your whatever dependency version. You need to be sure that it's compatible with the Gradle version, the Gradle plugin that you're making use of, right? Else, trust me, that can keep you for days, like days. Okay, so you import the library, and then of course you define your entity classes, right? You define your entity classes, which are usually a data class, right? And then they have the at entity annotation, and then you give it remember we said entities, right? It's just for the class, right? But in your database, there are tables, right? So we're creating a table called notes, right? There's a data class, and here you can see we're basically just saying that this ID should be the primary key and it should be auto-generated, right? So the first one will be 0, and to just keep on going 1, 2, and increasing. So after defining that, of course, you should go to your data access objects, right? So these are methods that you get to use to query your database, insert, update. So we're using the suspend function because we're going to be applying we're going to be working with live data, right? So that's basically that. So this is just like an example of how your DAO should kind of look like, right? We have the insert function, updates, delete, and then to get node. So you can see to get node, that's a query. So this is basically SQL, right? So select all. So the asterisk there means you want to select everything from your nodes, and this just gives you a list of nodes, but it's wrapped in a live data so that it can be observed. Okay, and then of course you create your database, right? Just create your database. We're going to do this also. And then what else? After creating your database, of course, you now initialize and use the database in your repository or however you want to use it, but we'll get to actually just play that out, right? So then, of course, after that, you use live data to observe those changes, right? So observe those changes and do something with it, right? So yeah, so that's kind of just like a rundown, right? You know, writing code, right? So just before I kick off, I just need to confirm one more time that you can hear me. Just confirm one more time that you can hear me. So somebody should confirm one more time that you can
Yeah,
hear me.
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let me share my Android Studio. Okay, let's quickly. So of course um okay, just a second. Okay. So let me know when you can see my Android Studio. So I've had to set up a few things, right? Because if I really if we want to start building everything from scratch, like eh, trust me, not we'll probably not have enough time, right? So I just set up a few things. I tried as much as possible not to set up too much, right? It's not possible not to set up too much. Okay, so let me see if I can trying to remember. Okay, so let's get started. I want to increase the font size. Or is it clear enough? Is it too small? I want
Yeah,
to,
I
I
can
mean,
see.
can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Okay. So, but well, let me just see if I can increase it just a bit more, right? Um, I should be in editor. Okay, fonts. Okay. Let's see how is 17 will look like. That's if that's actually okay. So probably when we're writing the code. Okay, so let's get to it, right? Um, so the first thing I'm going to do, right? So let me just show you guys what we have. So basically what I have my main activity, I have my note fragment. I've done a few things, right? Just basic setup from what I've been telling you guys to do, just a few, not all. So you basically have what you actually what you have, but it cannot add it yet, right? Um, set that up. I have my coin set up, right? Just pointed out a few things, right? So coin is actually available. My view model, right? So I'm just the name of this app for me is going to be Jot It, right? I just kind of changed the name much later, but I've not actually uh, you know, changed it from the package. So probably do that later. So I have my here we're going to create our data class here. So repository, we're going to create that. We're going to create the database. We're going to create the DAO. This is just the interface, and then uh, Jot adapter, right? So this is just the basic stuff. So we're going to be using a diff util called because I'm using a list adapter, but I've extracted this, so it's not in this same class. So it's in another class. So we'll work on this. So this is just me setting this. Shouldn't be true. We'll get to use that later. So let's see our file structure. Okay, so something I forgot to actually do fragments, and then just move this guy into fragments and just refactor that. Okay, so a few things that I'm just going to finish setting up right before we move. I'm basically using nav args, right? So I'm just going to set that up quickly. I'm basically using nav args because I'm using that to pass data from, right? So just going to take that out. Of course, I want to believe you guys actually know this, right? So basically on my edit note fragment, right? I want to be able to, that's where I'm, from my note fragment, I'm going to click on, it takes me to the edit note fragment, right? So from here, when I'm done filling, because I'm using this edit note to also create notes. So it's going to be like this fragment is going to create an edit at the same time. So when I click, at the very first time you open it, right, it means you want to create a note, you want to add a note, right? And that's assuming there's no notes there. So I want to take, I'm going to pass a whatever it is, right? And then send it down to the note fragment. So my argument, my argument type is the word jot, right? The class, I'm passing in this, my model class as the word argument, right? The name is jot and it's nullable, right? Of course, you have to make it nullable, right? And the default value is at null. So this is just an argument I want to pass whenever, I'm done creating or editing a task, a note rather. So that's that. Um, okay, think let me just check out. Okay, so before we get into view model, so let's just head into kind of setting room, and then I'll just do some finishing touches on every other thing, since room is the major reason why we're here, right? So I'm just going to do it, and then of course you should be able to do it on your own application, right? So start with setting up the database, right? So I create a new class, but it's going to be an abstract. Let's call it. So I said my app is going to be jotted. So I'm going to call it database. Okay. So I want this to be an abstract class. Sorry. So a database class. So please, at any point you can't hear me, just let me know, right? So I can. So it's going to extend our room database. Okay. Yeah, it's going to extend our room database, right? Yeah, so I'm going to just annotate this, right, with the at database annotation, right? And in the database annotation, you have a few things you need to pass, like your entities, which is going to be like an array of class, right? It could be an array of class. The views, the version, if the schema should be exported, if you want to do auto migrations and the like, right? So my entities, right, it's going to be an array of just, well, it's just one class we have, right? I've actually not put in anything in that class, but I'm going to do something. So just jot.class. So it's just one. I'm not creating a database for more than one classes. So the version is going to be 1. And then our export schema, well, I'm going to just say false. We don't want to export anything. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to create a companion object, right? Then let's create an instance from my database, right? My own database. Just going to create an instance of my. Okay, I think I made this typo here. Okay, good. So I'm going to create an instance of my database, right? I'm going to just null. So this instance, I'm going to annotate it with volatile. Okay, and then so this is just if you remember what you saw, this is just the way to set up your database, right? So I'm just doing that quickly. So our log should be of type any. So then we're going to create an operator function called invoke, which is going to take a context of type context, and we're going to just use this to okay, sorry. So it's going to be our instance, It's actually going to return an instance or give us synchronized lock. Yep. And then instance.create. So if the database is not, if it doesn't exist, right? So want to create, the database. I'm going to create a function to create the database. Because if the instance is null, right? I'm going to create the database. I'm passing my context, right? Dot also. Okay, so I think I need to, let me create this function. Okay, right, and then oh, I don't want this, just want it to do, so I'm going to just store room dot database builder, right? And then I'm going to pass in, I'm going to use the context to get my application context. Then I'm going to pass in a database class, and then I'm going to give it a name, right? So let's call it jot it, and then just going to build that, right? So that's actually how you create your, that's basically how you create your database, right? So here, just gonna do instance and then gonna update it, right? That's basically that. Okay, so in here also, I'm just going to create an abstract function, right, to get my DAO, to get the DAO that we're going to create, right? And that should return, our DAO, right? Okay, so that's just that. So that's just going to be that. So that's basically how you just set up the database. I hope you're not leaving out anything. So we invoke that, create the database. Okay. So after that, right? So let's now create our so we have not created our JOT model, which is going to be, kind of like the notes. What in your own case, you're calling it notes, right? So here is going to be a data class, right? And of course, if it's a data class, we're going to use parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to have, so well, this mine is going to have these, which of course yours should also have. So each note is going to have an ID, a title of type string. Let me just okay, so let's give it a content, right? A date, and I'm actually going to just create a color because I kind of would want to, play around with, sometimes when you're building databases, right, you should try as much as possible to consider future things that you would want to be in your database so that you don't always have a database to, add new stuff, right? So sometimes you can just create stuff ahead. So our ID is going to be our primary key. So we'll give it the primary key annotation and set the auto generate to be true. But of course, you can't finish this until you actually annotate your data class to be an entity, which basically just means you're giving it a table name, and our table name is going to be jot. Let's use small letter jot. Okay, so that's basically that. We're done setting up our class. Okay, so let's move to setting up our repository, right? So let's create a repository. I'm going to call it jot repository. So I hope you understand what is jot. You know, to jot something down. Okay, so jot repos. Oh, okay. I think I reading. typo there, repository. Okay, so repository now basically is going to take in a parameter, right? And that parameter should be the database, right? So we're just going to use a short form of db of type R database, right? So that's going to be a parameter to take. Then here we'll now define some functions. So for example, get jot, right? So how do we get that? So we use it to query the database. So our db dot our abstract function to get the jot DAO dot okay, we need to create a DAO actually before this. So we can actually call the methods in the DAO. So let's just do that, right? I already created an interface, but I've not actually populated it. So let's just set up that because we need it. Okay, so here, this is where we create functions to actual, kind of query the database. So we create an interface, right? Give it the @DAO. So the first function we want to create is to add jots, right? So add that stuff you want to jot, and that's going to just be of type jots. That's all, right? So to add means you want to insert. So we'll give that the insert annotation. Next one is to update. Okay, so same thing to take in a jot, right? And then so this will take the update annotation. Okay. I don't know if we actually part of what we are going to do is to delete, but let's just kind of just add these things so we don't, even if we don't get to use it, but we have it at a point where we need it, can now don't have to start doing a lot of things. So that's basically those three things, but of course we need to also get the list. So so a function to get all jobs. We're not going to use a suspend for that. To get all jobs, so this is going to return a live data of jobs, but it's going to be a list, a live data list, right? Live data list of what our jobs. Okay, right. So this is actually a query. So we're just going to do a simple query here. So first of all, give you the query annotation, and then what are we query? What do we want to do? So basically, this is what we want to do. We want to select. This is a command. Select all from jot, right? And then we also want to, let's say, we want it to be, in a particular order. So this is just SQL actually, order by descending by ID, right? But in a descending order, right? Okay, so this is just a query. So this basically is going to get the list, and order it by its ID in a descending order. That's from the most recent, jot you created, down. Well, okay, I'm not going to do this one. I'll give this. I wanted to. So, there's also one for search. So I'm going to leave that up to you. To you write a query to actually search, and return. Okay, so I'll leave that, but that's just a to do for you here, right? Query to search a jot. So you do that. Okay. So let's go back to our jotsit database, right? No, sorry, repository. So a function to get jots. So we use the database to query our DAO, which then gives us from there. We can now, get. Did I say all jobs? Sorry, all jobs. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Another function. So to add jots, so I'm going to use a suspend function, right? Add jots which is actually going to just take, it's basically going to be jot of type jot, right? And it's going to return db dot user get DAO to get that abstract function and then add jot, right? Okay, and then we have the updates to update our jots. So, which is also jot of type jot, and then db objects get our DAO, and then updates. Okay, sorry, I need to also pass the jot here. Okay, and deletes jots. Okay, db dot get a DAO, and then so also part of your task, you're going to add a function for search jot. So add a function for search jots. So that's it to do. Okay, so okay, we're having an error here. Okay, jots. Okay, so we are done with the repository, right? We're done with the repository. Okay, so let's now get into the view model, right? Let's get into the view model. I know I already set up a few things, but we'll now need to do some updates, right? Okay, so basically it's just what we have. So our view model class, so it takes application context, right? It takes an application context and it returns a view model. Okay. So it inherits it extends the view model. So if I drop view model, right, I'm just going to have a few things. So first of all, I want to, initialize my repository here. So I'm going to call it db or jot repo, right? Which is going to be of type jot repository. Okay. And then by application dot inject. So, that's our okay. So that's our dependency injection. So we are injecting our jot repository. So I need to go to my app class and then uncomment these guys because I've created them, right? So yeah, so we're injecting it into our view model so we can make use of that. We can now make use of it. So in our view model, let's create a function to save a jot, right? And of course, I'm going to say, let's say new jot of type jot. So I'm going to use my view model scope dot launch and then use our dispatchers.io. We'll talk about this, right? But this is basically what coroutines, basically using coroutines, right? I believe you know about coroutines, but if you don't, well, we'll talk about that. Okay, new jot. So that's a function to save a jot. So of course, we also want to update the jot. And so let's say existing jot. All right. So we're using a coroutine. So we're using our view model scope.launch. And then of course, use our dispatchers.ir Kotlin coroutines. Right. Okay. Ah, no wonder this was looking very weird. Yeah, no wonder it was looking very weird how it would be in that. Okay, yeah. So we'll use our jot repo here to delete. So I'm sorry, updates. So you see, this is basically just the whole MVVM pattern, right? I don't think I'm going to do maybe to be in the next class, right? Maybe to be in the next class. But let's just keep a comment here for delete jot. Maybe to be in the next class, right? Let me just get to do the one that we'll do now. If we have time, then I'll come back and just, do these other ones. So we are not out of time. So get all jots, right? So this is not going to take in any parameter, but it's just going to be of type live data list of our jots, and then jot repo dot get jots. Okay, so we have, of course, we can also do a query for search jots, which you will do. So probably I'll leave the search. Yeah, I'll leave the search and the delete to you, right? That's going to form part of your task. Yeah, that's going to form part of your task. And then I'll tell you how to, the way I would want you to delete a note, right? There's going to be a particular way I would want you to delete it, not just the way you want. Okay, so, but of course, well, it's not a view model, right? So let's set it up, right? Let's just set it up quickly. I usually used to have this code somewhere else, right? Because one thing about coding versus programming, you should not always repeat yourself. You should always find a way to componentize things, or have it somewhere. It saves time. But let me just write it. I have it somewhere, but let's just flow with it. So, but it's basically that. But we don't want to just return this. Okay, so I'm just going to do a check. If our model class, right, is assignable from, yeah, it's assignable from our jot view model. Okay, that's when we want to return. So we'll just return our jot view model as in the application as, so pass it as still, cast it, right? And then it's very important to throw an error in case there's, so we'll throw an illegal, I think that should be illegal argument exception. Yeah. Could just say unable to construct view model. Let's just use that comma. Okay, so yeah, I think that's that. So that's resetting up our view model. So we can save and update, and we can also get all our jots, everything we have jotted down, right? Okay, so let's take a step back and get into our adapter before we now get into the fragment. So let's just get into our adapter. Now the way I've built my own UI, it's almost the same thing as yours, but well, I think I have a typo in this joy database. Okay. Yeah, so let me refactor that. Okay, so let's go into our adapter, right? Let's go into our adapter. So I already have our jots adapter. So I decided to change the name. Notes. I may or may not just put it up on Play Store, right? May or may not. So Note is everywhere. So I decided to change the name, but if not, didn't do that for every place. Okay. Okay, so yeah, we have that. So we have our jot view holder. Of course, I don't think I need to explain this to you guys, right? But this my note item binding is from here. This is my note item. This is how it looks like. Let's wait for it to open a bit. That's how it looks like, right? So for now, just title, date, this, and then the card itself, I can play around with the color, right? Which is why I put the color, this, but I may or may not do it, so I'll leave that to you guys. Okay, so we have our create view holder that has already been done. And then list adapter takes in our jot class, and then that, okay. And then we're using the tool call. So I'll get to that diffy tool call back. Or basically, let's just set it up, right? Let's just set it up. It's actually very easy. So basically what we're going to do here, we're not returning true. We're going to just do old item dot ID, right? So we have this ID from here, right? This ID, good. So dot ID equals, so it returns true because if this is true. So that's basically what it does, right? So it returns false if items are the same, but if it is different, it checks if the items are the same and returns a true or false, and it checks if the contents are the same. So old item dot ID also, new item dot ID. That's just that. Like that's actually just that. So let's get back to our adapter, right? Okay, so what do we have here? So we'll just straight to the unbind view holder. That's what we're going to do a few things. So for my own, okay, I'm going to just let me get the item. Uh, just the item. You can, you're not hearing me. Just let me know because some bad feedback. Okay. Okay, so let me use .let. I'll just have access to, you know. Okay, so then I'll say holder dot apply. So I also have access to everything in the job view holder. So I have access to the parents, which is the parents there is my card view, right? So I want to do a transition, right? I want to do a transition for my own card view, right? So this is something you can actually just try out on your own. So first of all, it takes just recycler. Just this is just in like recycler view. And then the ID of that guy. So you can go check this out. I don't know if you've used it before, but just trying to make things a bit cool. I just want to do a transition. So that's just the name of the transition. So the recycler view, the ID of that particular recycler view. So you have recycler view 1_1, recycler view _2. So I'm just getting a transition name. Okay, so my title dot text, right? So that's going to be my jots.title. Okay, this is something I've done before. My dates dot text, which is going to be my jots.date. I think so parents dot set background color, right? So I'm going to add in a color in case I want to play around with that. So I just put in that, right? So I have my content, which is a text view, which is the actual jot, whatever you've jotted down, dot text, and then it's just to be jot dot the content. Okay, so I have two things I want to do, right? Now I want to the whole transition, right? From when you click on, where is that guy? Let me just open it. Okay, so when you click on the particular notes, like when you click on a particular note on the list, right? When you click on the notes from your recycler view, right? So when you click on one of them, right? When you click on the content also, what happens? So I'm using navargs, like I told you. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to go parent, which is my card dot. I want to set an on-click listener on it, right? And I want to just take an action here, just say call action. So my action here is going to be from my notes fragment directions. I'm going to save navarg. So action from my fragment, from my notes fragment to the edit notes fragment. So when I'm moving there, so dot set. Okay, I think I probably need to refresh since I just added that. So let's just review so that the arguments I added, it's because it should generate certain should generate some classes for me to make use of, right? So let's just kind of rebuild that. So I basically want to now an action, right? I want to set up an action. So when you click on the card view from the list, remember the adapter is related to the recycler. When you click on one, it takes you to the edit note fragment, right? If you click on card view, it will take you there. If you click on the content also, it will take you there, right? So depends on where exactly you want to click. So I'm going to just set an on-click list on both of them, on both the parent, which is the card view, right? In case the user clicks there, right? Or I'm going to set it on the content, right? Remember how it looks like. Let me show you how this is building. So this is our card view. So if the user clicks on this card view, right? So it will actually show. But if he clicks on the, and he also wants to show where he clicks on the content also, right? If he clicks on the content, right, it also will, take the user to, where he or she needs to be. So we did it on the card view, but click on the title, it won't take it there. Click on dates, no, either the content, background, the material. In sorry, things normally I can actually shut down. We try to see if I can even close just one. Okay, so unresolved reference for node fragment directions. Yeah, so 9. So it imported this actually, but I didn't want it to do that yet. So let's just rebuild that. Sorry, it had already imported it. That's why we have the error, and yet we're not using it here. So I just want to rebuild it so that I have classes that I need to, be able to transition from the recycler view to, the edit note fragment, which is the recycler view is hosted in the notes fragment, right? Or jot fragment down to the, okay, so, yep, I know this is going to take a few minutes. Sorry, did I say a few minutes? Well, maybe a minute. So let's just hang in there. Just a few seconds, we will be done. Okay, so yeah, jotted the model does not exist. Fragments, okay. So okay, don't worry, I know where that's coming from. Okay, so let's see if we have what I need right now. Yes, I have what I need. The set jots, right? Yeah. Then pass in the jots. Okay, so I have what I need. Let's see. Okay, so we have an error here. So cannot access jot class. Check your module class path for missing or conflicting dependencies. Okay, so let's do that again. Note fragment directions dots. Okay. Dot sets. I want to actually do the set jots, which takes the jot. So so I think I'll have to check. Let's check where is that guy? Okay, sorry, check our nav graph. Okay, so we're good here now. we're actually good on this end. So let's see. But it's come with example. Okay. Okay, so I see why we're having this issue, right? So you can see the arguments type here, right, is different. Like I said, I was changing, I was trying to change from my notes to jot it, but not done that for just did that. So I just need to change this to my notes. Yeah, yeah, example dot my notes. Yeah. So that's the thing. When you want to refactor, you need to be careful. So it means that I have to, you know, sorry, I have to actually now view this again. So it kind of, first of all, I kind of want to clean the project. Then I have to rebuild it again. So it, just um generates, so it generates the right thing for me. So you can see it's even generating a wrong stuff for me. Okay, so okay, that's so sorry about that. It's part of development. Okay, I hope it did not give any issue. I hope this will. So let's just hang in there. It's so this is 14 minutes past 2. Yeah, I think we'll definitely finish this, right? So once we are done with, the adapter, then we just go to the fragments and then few logic and then we should be done with this. So by week or yeah, I think we'll finish about this week. Yeah, next week. It's just to modify and use the application. But one of the things that we may be looking at next week is testing. We may actually be looking at testing from next week. Let's just see how that goes. Okay, so I want to believe that this guy will not give me, or if he does, then well, let's see if it still gives me an error. Then find out what's it's just going to be a debug, right? So let's see. Check your module class part. So we're um still having this module class part error, right? So I think we need to check something. Let me see. That's the thing about renaming. Probably have not. Um, okay. Dot model. Okay, so that actually seems fun. Try that again. Okay, so I still having that error. I think I'll just have to debug it quickly. Let's see. Let's do some debugging right now. Okay, so okay. See where this is taking to. Okay, unchecked and then So these are not okay. Generated class. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we are good now. Okay. Then I guess it probably was just taking a bit of time to because everything seemed correct. Okay, so I'm gonna just create an extra. It's just have to add, want to add an extra information. So this is, I'm going to use the fragment navigation extras, navigator extra rather. Um, so this just gives it give it some um argument variables, right? More like a pair. So I'm going to just say parent, right? So I'm just going to take this. Yeah, now navigation, find nav control, and then of course passing our a value dot navigate, and then passing our that we created and so that's basically that. So that rounds up our unbind view. It's our note fragments, right? So we initialize our view model, right? So I'm just gonna comment this. Initialize. So this is just initializing our view model, right? No big deal, right? So we just do that. So and then what am I doing here? So in my own create, I'm actually I created a transition, right? So it's more like a transition note to edit and edit to note. So the material elevation scale, right? So it's something you can try out and see, but you see the effect of the application. So I'm doing that when I'm creating my fragment created, right? The best the practice, right? We don't really use for example in fragments, right? We don't really use on a view on create view that. So you pass in your layout here, your layout call here, and then we just use on view created. Okay, so of course we have our we initialize our binding, right? So we have created a notes binding late init here. So later on I'll do a refactoring. So fragment node binding dot this, then of course an activity because we need that, a nav controller. So this is just trying to play around with my window manager, right, for full screen and a lot of status bar color and so. So here I just have a what's it called? Just a set of clickings now on my floating action button, right? So it makes this guy invincible, my app value, and then of course it navigates to the edit nodes. Then I also have an inner fab that does the same thing. So just so you get to see, let me show you how my own UI is here. Okay, so it's just to click on this my own listen. Okay, so yeah. So let's go ahead. Okay, so let's move on. So that so let's get into doing just a few things. So first of all, I'm going to create a function here. Is call it display recycler view. Okay. Function to observe data changes. So how to do these things right. You probably will apply it differently in your own task. Okay, so well, anyone can actually go first, right? Anyone can actually go first. So let's just you know, okay. So basically to observe data changes. So I'm going to use our view model. Then I'm going to to observe the view life cycle. In observation, right? So there's something I have here. Um, something I have here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so I have this image, right? Let me just make it visible. So I want to observe data changes, right? So if this is data, this guy should be hidden, shouldn't be displayed. Or if there is no data, right, then you should display it. So, but I'm going to just leave it at gone. So I'm going to listen. So I'm observing my list, right? I'm observing my list. So if I'm going to use my note binding dot no data of the image view dot is visible. So if I'm just going to notice that. So make it visible. Make it visible if the list is empty. So the it here refers to the list, right? So if it is empty, then this guy should be what's visible, right? And then I think adapter is then submit. Now we score submit list, then pass it. So just have to do this since we're using the list adapter. Okay, so that's that. So for the now I'm going to, this is also something I think I remember telling you guys that you have a particular view, your list. So uh, just show you guys, you actually can implement that in your own. So I have a function to display. Not just I just don't want to do a straight up linear layout manager and all those stuff like that. So I want to be able to display it, right? I want to display, like I want the display to be different when the orientation is portrait and when it is landscape. So I'm just going to say when resources, which is from our get resources, things we are looking out for here. So it's configuration dot orientation portrait. So when it is portrait, I want to set up, I want to call my setup recycler view. I'm gonna create a function for that recycler view, and then I pass in a number, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. This is going to be for landscape, right? And then I'm going to pass in 3. So it's just could pass in anything. So let's create this function. So now basically that 2 or 3 is just a span count, right? By using a staggered grid layout manager. So it's just a span count. So you're passing in this count. So to set up your recycler view, so I'm going to call my recycler view rv nodes dot easy dot apply. So the layout manager is going to be a staggered grid layout manager, which takes a span count and how you want the orientation to be those vertical. Okay. So let's look with the set has fixed size. In everything we are doing now, just that's like the applying to recycler view. So this should be true. So of course our adapter, which is our jot adapter, right? we're going to get an instance of this adapter here. And then the recycler views adapter will now pass in the jot adapter to it, right? So, and then I'm going to do this. So there's postpone enter transition. I think postpone enter transition, right? Let me give the duration of a 300, which is long, and as for the unit 300 milliseconds, right? So postpone entry transition 300 milliseconds, and then so there's also this view tree observer, right? So let's fetch the documentation so you can see that. Just okay for while let me just finish that up. Then add on pre-draw. So, and then we'll call our starts. We have the start postponed enter transition, and then of course true, passing through. Yeah. Okay, so these are just the things we are kind of setting up for. We're just setting up our recycler view, right? We're just setting up our recycler view, and then of course after setting it up, we want it to, after applying that inside our function, we should also observe. We should also observe data changes, right? We had already created this function here. So basically checking that list. So we're observing it, right? Okay, so that's for the edit fragment, the notes fragment, right? Let's go to the edit note fragment, right? So the edit note fragment. I think that should be the last last thing we should do. Then we'll test it out. And we have not introduced bugs well. So I'm going to just comment this out. These are view model. Then here, of course, if you've used nav before, yes. So I'm just creating an what's it called? Environment. Jots and making it null, right? So we have a variable for result string current data. So here we're getting an instance of what's date time. So this is just dates. And then of course this is just an instance of our coroutine scope and that. So that's basically what we're going to use. And I'll create, so same thing, but here I'm using an animation, immaterial container transform. You see how that actually work. Okay, so on view created, so we have our initialized our binding nav controller. So these are just a few things I said. So this one I removed it, and it's going to be part of what you're going to do, right? It's going to be part of what you're going to do. I'm just going to let you know. So the task, I'm going to give you some basic things that is expected in your task. Okay. So let's go, right? Let's go. So I want to let me still do, I want to get my transition name again. There's just okay, so search transition name binding notes parents. That's so it's just a relative layout, right? And then let me see. Okay, no, this is actually what I want. Why? I wasn't sure what I had copied, so okay. Okay, so nullable, make that nullable. Okay, so let's, what do we want here? So when the back button is clicked on, we want to pop up the back stack, right? We want to pop up the back stack, and then we want to update our notes, right? So here we're going back to the notes list. So We'll create this function. To save a note, right? What do we want to do? We want to just save a note. So create this function also. And then also we want to also set up our notes, right? That function too. Okay, so well, we may not use a few things, right? Because I don't want to. So let's set up the note first, right? Let's set up our note. Very important. So I'm going to create some variables, right? The note itself, right, is going to be, we'll get our args, our dot jot, right? Title, going to be our content binding. What actually to create all these things, right? And store them in variables. So you can actually just, access it directly, but just that's right. Optimize it. So that's note the content, right? Which is a note content, and then so want to also see based the date time. Last time it was edited. So the content binding dot last edited. So the last edited here is just show you guys. Okay, so just this, right? So we'll just display something here. That's all. Okay, so first of all, we would want to check if our note is null. The argument that will be passed, is it null? If it's null, then our last edit dot text, right? If it is null, so we're going to a text, right? So okay, let me create a string. I think I created it already, so let me just see. Get string. Okay, so r dot string dot think edited on. Okay, I have that, right? And then I'm going to pass in simple date format. Dot get instance dot format, and what I'm formatting the date. Okay, so yeah, that's basically what we want to do. So what do we have here? So this is just what we have edited on, and then we'll get the date, right? Edited on, and then we get the date. So that's if it is null, right? We also want to check if it is not null. So if note is not, some of you will be like, okay, why didn't we just do else? Oh, sorry, not equal to. Okay. So if it is not equal to null, right? So let's set, right? Let's say the color is going to be, or I'm still using note again. So what's this jot? Notes.color, right? The title, if it's not equal to null, mean that it has something, right? It means that it has something, it has a value, right? That is your going from value there. So you're just going to set it. So dot set text, which is the title, the content. So our content is an edit text, right? So we use dot set text, and using notes to the arguments to get to access the content. You have the last edit the text, so we can just do text. So I already have get string done. It's so here we're just going to take the current because the note is actually also this is where you actually just click the button, the floating action button, right? Um, yep, going, going. So for the content, right? Content itself. So let me just put my mind to apply a few things, right? So if the note is not null, I'm going to just do something here. I'm using right, and then set the background color to color, right? That's one thing I just want to do, right? Just one, and then think about I have it toolbar, right? Right, toolbar. Okay, yeah. So this toolbar here, this guy. Okay, set the back color. Okay. This thing. So this is just kind of stuff I'm just showing you. Actually, that one. Okay. So yeah, that's so let's save a note, right? How do we save, Okay, so first of all, we need to check if our content, if content, okay, so we first do we check, right? If this is empty, um, or if title is um empty also, so the person doesn't just, save thing. So we check if these two things are empty, right? If they are, right? If they are, we can just, do it so it's fine. What did I do? Oh, sorry. Let's do it, right? Just as an activity here. It's a context. I could just tell them, oh, so if it is not empty, right? So we'll have an else. So first of all, to update, I have this jot object, right? Where I initialize it to null. So yeah, I'm not going to say that I'm going to object here, argument, right? So date in, right? And then I'm going to use a when statement to say when this jot, right? When this jot is null, I want to save a note. So of course it means that there's nothing there. There's nothing there. It is null. We will call our view model dot save jot, and then we'll pass in the jot, right? So what does the jot need? The ID first is 0, and then it needs the title. So content binding dot our title, which is dot text dot to string. Right. It also needs you know, content dot to string. It needs the current data. The current data here is the date. I think I wanted to say current date. So let me current date. I shift F6 actually. Okay. Yes. So current, and then the color. So those are the three things, right? Five things that you need to create. So, so that after I've called the to save the note, want to create, just update a text here saying note saved, right? And this note saved, right? The reason I'm doing that, I want to set what to call fragment result. This fragment result takes two things, a key and then, more like an argument. So for the key, I'm just going to call it key, like a request key. And then the result is going to be, I'll just say a bundle of, I'll call it a bundle key. Let that be the key. Let's say bundle key. Match paired that to result. Okay, so just a fragment result. So when I want to, after it has saved it, so we now want to navigate, right? So we use our edit notes fragment directions, right? Dot action from edit notes back to note, right? And that's just it. So yeah, so this is when it is null. So if it is not null, right? So do an else, right? And else means that it's not null, right? So that means we should update, means there's something that means we should update the notes, right? And then leave that place, pop up the backstack and get to the listen. So right, that's actually easy. So I'm just, first of all, I'm going to check that my object is not equal to null, right? So if it is not null, it's not null, I'm trying called view model dot update jot, right? And passing a jot, which is so I'm not going to use this to get the ID, so just update it, right? Um, copy this, right? Okay, so yeah, that's how you update the notes. Okay, so okay, so I think that's been right. Yeah, so that's basically how we set up. So when the view is created, right, we just actually take that here. Let me take. So set up the note, right? Yeah. And when you click the back button, note has already set up updates. Okay. Save note when you click on save note. Okay, so yeah, I think we are good to go. Except I'm forgetting something. So okay, well, I've done our notes. I've played around with our note fragments. So I think everything seems okay. I think everything seems okay. Okay, so we were able to create our database. Let's just cross-check. We're able to create our database. We're able to create our DAO. Okay. Okay. Our model is good to go. Let me check our database again. Okay. Our adapter, good to go. Diff util callback, good to go. Our repository, okay, that's good to go. Of course, our view model. Okay, that's good to go. Okay, our main activities doesn't really have anything to do, but just okay. What do we even have in our main activity? Oh, okay. I have these two things here. Oh, I don't think I need to start implementing share for you guys now. You guys you're too advanced for me to start implementing share for you. So that's something you can do yourself. Okay, so let's run this, right? So this is me. I'm going to switch to my well, I'm going to switch to my mobile, right? So we see it. Okay. Um, so just give me a second. Let me share. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I'll stop sharing on this end. Okay, so let's watch that installed. Okay, so we have a bug that would need to fix. So let's find it. Okay, so let me switch to, or better still, let me run it again. Need to be sure. Um, okay, need to be able to, okay. Actually not seeing, okay. So, let me check what we have here. Okay, so let me switch to my, let's switch to the, so you get to see this error with me, and then we, fix it together. Okay, so we're having this runtime, okay, binary file 964 in our activity main. Okay, so let's go to activity main line 64. Line 64 is our nav graph, so that means let's go into our, should probably go into our nav graph. But let's still check down. So cost by binary file line 64, line sorry, live graph. Okay, nav graph line 30 and except 30. Okay, value. Okay, so the exception there. Okay, which is also cost by our model is not serializable. Okay, yeah. So I think that's one thing I forgot to do. So yes, we should make it serializable. Yes, sir. Yeah, skipped that. So it's actually very good to um, you know. Okay, so let me run this now and then share. Okay. Okay, so let's just wait to run. Let's wait for it to run. Gradually is building. Hopefully we don't have any bugs. Bugs are actually good. Okay, so install on from address to, let's see. Okay, so that's fine. So you can see, you know, uh, we actually uh, code at least to if the list is empty. So let's do a demo, right? So for note type, we're going to say, just say title one. Okay, so here, this is a new note. Okay, so you can see we already have the time, right? You can see the time, the current, it shows you the current time and the date, right? Okay, so I'm just going to click on my save icon, and then here you have it, right? So you can see we have our new notes. Don't worry about the UI. We have more functionalities. Maybe before the next time you see this, you will not even recognize it. So that's that, right? So when I click on it, you can see it takes me back there, passes that. I can also edit this, a new note again. Then save that. Okay, so you can see that, right? So that's actually, that's room, right? That's room. So there's something I want to show you on the something I want to show you. Let me show you guys this. So let me stop sharing. Okay, so you can come to your let me see if I can remember this. I think that should be okay, app inspection. Yes, you can actually inspect notification, right? To see your database. So I think you just give it takes a few seconds if I'm not mistaken. So I mean yeah, should be so I think it's taking a while. Should be app inspection. Okay. So probably that takes a while. But while we wait for that, so that's basically that's actually that, right? That's actually how you implement room. That's actually how you implement room. It's not really a I think I'll talk to you guys about this Android profiler, right? We'll check. I think I'm supposed to look into it. So that's actually that. I don't know if there are any questions. So what you're going to do for me, which is part of your task. So if you're for those who have not actually even done this basic one, right, of creating and updating a note, right? So you're going to add functionalities to delete a note. Now, but the deleting I want, right, is not press and hold. I want swipe to delete. Okay. So you're going to implement a swipe to delete functionality. Implement a swipe to delete functionality for me. Right. So yeah, that's going to be one of the things you're going to implement for me. Swipe to delete. Then you also implement the search functionality to search for a note, right? You search for a note, you do that for me. So those are the two basic things. So if you have not implemented, of course, the purpose for you to implement room. So to add a note, update a note, and view the notes, right? But not but you have not done it, but I've actually just given you expo actually. But if you have, then you're going to update your code on the new branch, right? On the new branch, and then you should go to what's it called? Branch you can call that. You those that have already done a task on, right? You can just call that branch room update. But if you have not, then your branch name should be room, okay? And then for the total functionalities that you should have is to add a note, update a note, see the list of notes, delete a note. Now, the deletion of notes should be by swipe to delete. Okay, so you're going to implement swipe to delete for me, and then you should also be able to search for a note. Okay, you should also be able to search for a note. Okay, so I think I know why this guy wasn't actually even showing. The app wasn't So I don't think I was connected to the application. I wanted to show you guys how this thing actually works. So let me engage this application again to create a new notes. I want to see something. Okay. Okay, so I don't know if it's my Android student being slow, but you can check it out, right? By this side, you should be able to see, more like a breakdown of your database. You should be able to see it. You should be able to, except I've actually forgotten, right? Except I've forgotten, but okay, let me. hmm, Okay, still something. Okay, so any question? Any question? Any question? If there is none, then I really wanted to show you guys this stuff. If there is none, okay, this is taking us to there's none, then I think we're gonna round this is where we round up the class for today. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys for staying to the end. I think this is the first, well, I see this is the first time you all have been in the class and the class ended. It's the very first time. Okay, so take note of everything we've learned and the task. I'm going to put that up on the learning management system today, so you can start working on it. So this is exactly 2:59. So sorry, yeah, that's about 3 o'clock. So that means we stayed, exactly 2 hours, though even though we had a bit of a hitch. So thank you guys very much, and see you on Discord.